Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim. We talk about horror movies on this show, and this episode we are going to tackle a sequel. We have many franchises that we are working our way through. We started a bunch in October for Halloween, and we're working our way through over the course of the months that follow until we have completed some of these franchises. There's another big one. Last week we did Friday the 13th, Part 2. This week it's Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 2. Freddy's Revenge. And what's funny is that whenever I see it written down, it's always just 2. It's not Part 2. But I was paying attention in the movie. The title in the movie says Part 2.
Interesting. Okay.
For the record, just in case. It's not important at all, but just in case it is important somehow.
Oh, it's funny because I think we talked about that a little bit with Friday the 13th, because I think that was Part 2.
That was Part 2, yeah.
Yeah.
They kept the part outside of 4, which didn't have the number. They kept the part all the way up till 8. Whereas I feel like Nightmare on Elm Street, this may be the only time it does it. I don't know. Maybe maybe the title in the movie itself will say Part 3 next time. I don't know, but certainly the titles written down on the Blu-rays, the DVDs, and all that never say Part something. This is probably the most boring conversation we could possibly be having about this movie. So we'll start spoiler free, as we typically do, and we will warn you before we go into spoilers somewhere in the middle, and we'll get into it. So Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is an odd sequel, one might say, partly because it's it references the first movie, so the first movie did happen, but going forward after this, the movie's kind of... you could skip this movie and just go straight to 3 and you would never feel like you've missed anything. There's nothing in this that affects anything after this movie. At least from what I remember. I don't remember it ever being mentioned again. And
I don't think so.
Just in terms of a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, it kind of isn't one, in a sense. Because the plot of a Nightmare on Elm Street movie is that Freddy Krueger comes into your dreams and he kills you in your dream. And if he kills you in your dream, then you die in real life. That's the rules, right? That's a Nightmare on Elm Street. This movie is about Freddy Krueger possessing a teenage boy and using him to kill people, and he never actually kills anyone in a dream in the entire movie. Not a real person anyway. No one dies in a dream because of Freddy. It's all this weird, he's kind of possessing Jesse kind of thing, and that's the thing. So then there's also a lot of homoerotic things going on, which we will talk about. So that's the movie. So I will ask Tim the question that I always ask. Tim, did you enjoy, or do you enjoy, because you've seen this before, do you enjoy A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge?
So I would say, in a weird way, yes. But I wouldn't say it's a good movie. I would say it's an interesting movie. Like you said, it doesn't really do what you want in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, but because of if you watch the like the 4-hour long documentary Never Sleep Again, I think it's called.
Yes, that's the Nightmare one, yeah.
Yeah, so they have a lot of interesting things to say about this, and like you alluded to, it's kind of gained notoriety for having very not so subtle, like sexuality tones and stuff about it, which I actually think makes it kind of interesting, because you don't really see that in a lot of horror movies. Once you kind of like, seeing this as a kid, like, that stuff was kind of over my head, but watching it now and knowing that stuff, I think it actually does make it kind of an interesting watch because of it.
Yeah, it's an odd one. It's bizarre to me that the first sequel, they kind of like completely changed the premise of the series, and then the third one goes back. The third one kind of course corrects and says, no, that's not Nightmare on Elm Street, this is Nightmare on Elm Street. And you wouldn't have it any other way, but this second movie exists, and it's this kind of weird oddity where Freddy's doing something completely different. I mean, he still wants to kill people ultimately, that's what he's doing, but his entire like premise of the movie, the plot, sort of the way he interacts with people is completely different. And that's kind of weird.
It kind of reminds me of like in the 80s, Nintendo, when they would make sequels to Nintendo games, oftentimes they would like to change it up and make it like really different from the first one. So you have like the American version of Super Mario Brothers 2 and Zelda and Castlevania 2 are all really like different, and I think part of it is people maybe not understanding like what people want. They're like, oh well, we can't just do the same movie again, we got to give them something different, and then immediately flip-flopping and be like, oh wait, no, people like the first one because of like what we did, not they don't need us to change it up all the time.
It's a balance of that, but I think it's when you change the actual rules of what they made the movie work, and you're doing something like just, no, the character now does this instead. It's like, okay, it's weird. I mean, he's still Freddy, he's still Robert Englund, he's still cracking his lines, he still, has his moments that's very Freddy-like, but that's, it's just different. And what I will say, though, is I think the movie actually is a decent watch. It is definitely not the best movie in the series by any means, but I think it's a decent watch because it has memorable characters. Like, I feel like Jesse, Lisa, and their friend Grady, I feel like they're all relatively likeable and memorable.
Yeah.
I remember his parents as well. Jesse's parents are kind of like his dad's, this like fuddy-duddy who's constantly telling him to clean his room and like, I won't have this in my house, and he's constantly he's claiming there's nothing's wrong. He's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with the AC, even though we're all sweating and it's like 100 degrees. Like,
it's maybe one of the sweatiest movies I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, Jesse wakes up in a warm sweat, and he's just drenched in sweat so many times in this movie. And on top of that, he's always in his tighty whities, so he's always walking around almost naked, and there's just bulge on the underwear.
A lot of times he'll have his shirt open if he's wearing a shirt. And and then one of the things I think that does make it watchable is not that it was intended to, but I actually do find it to be really funny. Like, there's a pretty ridiculous dance scene, and there's a lot of lines.
I cannot imagine that dance scene was not intended to be funny. Like, there's no way he was doing that on set and people thought, oh no, this is a serious dramatic moment or a horrific moment. No. They knew what they were doing there.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, you have all the homoerotic stuff in there, which of course we said he's like half naked a lot of the time, the shirt's open. It goes more deeper on that though, because the whole idea that Freddy's gradually trying to like possess him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about Freddy. Like, every time it happens, like, Freddy comes out from within and sort of rips part of his skin off and stuff. And it's like very clearly kind of like it's a metaphor for his homoerotic feelings deep inside, and it's kind of coming to the surface, but he's terrified of what will happen if it does, and he's scared of it. Like,
and it causes him to run away from his girlfriend and try to seek solace in his like male best friend.
Who, by the way, did you recognize the actor who was playing the best friend, Grady?
Oh no, I didn't.
He was in Vamp.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. Because as soon as I saw him, I went, wait a minute, I've seen him in something recently. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, oh, he's the guy in Vamp who
good catch.
Who gets turned. So, no. So yeah. So you've got all that. But on top of that, you've got the gym teacher who gives him a hard time, also goes to S&M clubs.
He catches him at an S&M club, and instead of like bringing him back to his parents or something, he makes him do laps in the gym like in the dead of night.
Yeah.
While he's like still wearing his like leather outfit.
Call me crazy, but I didn't think all the teachers had like keys to unlock the gates and stuff at schools. Like, typically you get your janitors and that kind of thing who do all that. I don't really believe he would have access. And does he not think this is weird that he's still standing in his leather top, shouting that he shouldn't to run around?
It's absolutely crazy, but no one questions it.
It's absolute madness. The actor who plays the teacher, actually, the gym teacher, he's been in a bunch of stuff, but I know him mainly from Twins. He's one of the bad guys in Twins.
Oh, okay.
He's like this hitman in Twins. I like that movie a lot. I watched that a lot growing up as a kid. So that's what I know him of primarily. But
I believe the bartender at the S&M club is Robert Shea, I think.
Oh, I didn't even notice, but you may be right. That makes a lot of sense, because he's obviously the head of New Line, so he was heavily involved in it. Which, interesting, this movie had the proper New Line logo that we all kind of remember. The first one didn't. The first one had this different old school looking thing, whereas this is the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie to have the film strip parts coming in, and so nice little touch. Not much to say about it, but it's cool.
It's nice to see, yeah.
Yeah. So it's weird. Like the kills. The kills are okay. There's some decent kills in here. They're not all amazing or anything, but they have some moments.
Yeah, so the kills are all right. There's some decent ones, but definitely not as good as the first one. And like you were mentioning earlier, it's probably because of that difference between the first one, Freddy's fully in your nightmares. You can have these kind of bigger, more outlandish stuff. When this one, it's kind of trying to do this possession, real world kind of thing, which does still have like weird, interesting stuff, but not to the level of the first movie.
Yeah, but did the first one have the S&M gym teacher tied up with skipping rope and then whipped with towels like it was like a S&M kind of scenario? I don't think it did.
To be fair, no, it did not.
It did not. I think you'll find. Yeah,
I do think again, not going too much into spoilers, but I think the ending, they do something that is just like, oof, I don't like what they're doing here.
Yeah, it does a weird thing at the end. I guess it's a really bizarre Nightmare on Elm Street movie. There's so many things in the plot that are just so not like any of the other movies. Like the entire idea, of course, that he's possessing people, but just the way it ends. That said, it does kind of the final very scene does feel like a kind of callback to the original's final scene with the because the last movie it was a car at the end.
Yeah.
End of this movie, it actually opens and ends with a bus in this movie, and we get this demented bus sequence where the bus is Freddy's driving the bus and he takes it out into like the desert, and then like the ground falls away and like in the pits of hell with nothing but like a bottomless pit bit around them. Strange stuff, over the top. If it really felt like, the first one did well, let's throw some more money so we can do this elaborate opening scene where you get all this crazy stuff. But hey, it's okay.
Do you think that was a real bus on the rocks, or did they use like miniatures or something?
The exterior shots, probably miniatures.
Okay.
Yeah. Aye. I imagine the rocks themselves were also miniatures, to be honest, Tim. The whole thing was probably a...
Yes, I'm just pulling your leg, Pete. It very obviously is. It looks so fake and cheesy.
Look, Tim, I'm tired, I'm loopy, and you're hitting me with jokes that I just can't decipher in my current state of mind.
There's something inside of you trying to get out. I feel you.
It needs to come out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So you ditch your girlfriend and come to me?
Never, Tim. Never. Dear. If I meet someone and she also wants to be the co-host of this podcast and get rid of you, I'll let her. I'll do it for her.
Oh my God! Please, please, where are you?
Yeah, so I think we'll go to spoilers. I think we'll lift the spoiler veil and dive in. So
the parakeet explodes.
There is possibly the most exciting chasing the bird around the room scene in the history of movie making that results in it flying into a light and it just blowing up. Yeah, that was a thing that happened. There's also a toaster that catches on fire even though it's not plugged in. And
I always forget this scene, but his little sister is eating maybe the most racially insensitive cereal ever.
That's right, yeah, it's a Fu Manchu cereal, and she's like,
but choose is spelled like CHEWS.
And she wants the Fu Manchu fingers that come with the cereal, and obviously it's just so because it mirrors Freddy's knives, and like Jesse's like freaking out like
He does a look at the camera where like you kind of wondered if they were trying to decide if they should put in a wah 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 sound effect or not.
Like I say, it's full of these weird odd little things like that don't quite make sense. And him and his girlfriend are fine, like Lisa. Like here's another thing. This is something that never really comes up, but he has a car that he drives around, and like when she comes to like sort of meet him at his house in the morning to go to school, and he's like, okay, I'll drive us, let's go. They jump in the car, and you see that there's no radio, there's like things missing, and it's like a complete wreck, and he just pushes in a button to start it, right? And she's like, don't you have a key? Like, won't someone steal it? And he's like, what, you mean the death? I can't remember what he calls it, but he has a name for it. It's basically just like a hunk of junk. No one would ever even want to steal it. And I was thinking, oh, this must play into something later. The fact that it doesn't need keys or something, like, you know, like it must come up, and it never does. The fact that he drives this car is irrelevant for the rest of the movie, but it gets this introduction for whatever reason. In terms of connecting to the first movie, they find Nancy's diary because they move into her house. Like he's living in her house now, and we actually find out that her mother, at least the official story, is that she committed suicide in the living room. Because if you remember, we were trying to decipher what the final scene of the first one, like, if it was, did that really happen? Was it just, you know? And if Freddy did kill her in her dream, it would look like suicide.
Yeah. So I think that's yeah, like you said, there's not much that really ties it into the other movies, but I guess that is something you can kind of cling on to, be like, all right, there's a little bit of continuity there.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really have to be there. I'm not really that fussed about it, but I just think it's funny that it does. They do find this diary and they're looking through it and they're like, oh, okay, right. So Nancy went through all this. She saw her boyfriend being murdered across the street and then went crazy. And I'm like, wait a minute, that happened like the same night she like ended it all. Like she fought Freddy that same night. Like that wasn't her going. She went crazy. You know, as far as the public sort of record and the public eye is concerned, she went crazy mostly before her boyfriend got murdered across the street. Just for the record. So I'm just saying.
So get it straight.
Yeah, get it straight, movie. Keep your continuity in check. Yeah, so he gets possessed, and he wanders over to the S&M club. He meets the coach. And it's when he's in the shower that he apparently gets possessed by Freddy and kills the coach. I do like the way it does it like multiple times, almost too much, but I do kind of like the whole way where he'll lift up his hand and he's wearing the glove.
Yeah. And
it just the look of horror on his face. He's like, wait a minute, I'm wearing the Freddy glove. What's happening? So, you know, he's got a couple of things like that, which it kind of makes it. Like I say, I think the characters being kind of memorable is the one of the best things it's got going for it, and kind of the stupid ideas that it has. When we actually get to the end game, though, and it's like this pool party at Lisa's house, and like, I mean, again, tied into the homoerotic thing, the idea that Freddy comes out again when he's about to have sex with a, you know, like, that's clearly like a thing. But then he's at the party and Freddy comes out, and so this is where I was getting like confused with things. I'm like, are other people actually seeing Freddy Krueger, or are they seeing just Jesse being crazy? Like, what are they seeing? And it seems to be they're actually seeing Freddy, because the ending with Lisa would imply that, because she sees a difference when he comes back to normal.
That's the way I took it, yeah.
Yeah. But Freddy basically, he's in the real world now, and he's like jumping around this pool party, like just stabbing various people. And,
yeah,
like, flipping tables over.
It really like doesn't work.
It doesn't, because there's like 40 people at this party, and they don't think to like just rush him and pin him down.
Yeah, like that is pretty ridiculous. Like one guy tries to, you know, like kind of talk him down, which is kind of funny, but like, yeah, other than that, they could easily overpower him. But otherwise, he loses a lot of his mystique when, you know, he's not this like, you know, menacing, creepy dream god. Now he's just like kind of, when he's in the real world, he just looks like a small manic dude that's just like kind of running around haphazardly in the like.
Yeah, like him running around at that pool party in front of all those people just kind of makes him feel weak. Especially when he first turns into Freddy when they're about to have sex. He, like, she immediately just hits him over the head with a lamp, and it like really throws him off balance, and he's like disorientated, and I'm like, he shouldn't be this easy to like distract. This feels far too easy. So it kind of neuters him a little bit in that sense. And then they run to the factory, the power plant where he killed the kids, because we introduced it earlier on in the movie, and basically the power of love from Lisa burns Freddy alive, and then Jesse emerges from a cocoon of like charred Freddy, and it's Jesse who's there now. He won, yeah. Which
it kind of sends like a shitty message, where if you are looking at this like as kind of an allegory for, you know, someone fighting with their, trying to deal with their sexuality and stuff, then this would mean the ending is basically like, oh, like all you need is the love of a good woman to get cured, and that's like, that's kind of shitty.
This is the thing. I don't think that's intentional, because if I remember the stuff in the documentary, it wasn't like in the script, or like even maybe not even the director who are like doing like the sexual subtext stuff. For them, I think the ending works because the ending's just the ending of a normal story.
Right.
I think it was the actor and like someone else who was specifically putting in a lot of extra stuff.
If again, just going on memory, I do believe that the actor at the time was in the closet himself, and it's actually kind of sad. Again, if I'm remembering it correctly, I think that this did kind of like haunt him for a good while until like eventually, he came out and whatever. But for like a long time, he was seen as like oh, the gay kid in that nightmare movie. But
I don't think I don't think when it was written, the script, I don't think it was intentional.
Yeah.
Outside of maybe the gym teacher being like in the S&M club, but the rest of it, I feel like
I think there was someone that was involved in it that I think was maybe intentional, but I don't know if it was like maybe like a screenwriter, or maybe even just someone like the set designer or something, because I think there are like a lot of like
I remember the set designer, because in his bedroom I think there's like posters on the wall that are kind of suggestive and stuff.
Yeah, I think there's one that says like "No girls allowed" or something like, which is just kind of
but I think whoever wrote the movie, I think when they wrote it, it wasn't like a subtext that was meant to be there. So the ending works in that sense because it's not actually supposed to have this allegory. But it was like everyone else after the fact added all this stuff in. So now if you're looking at it, like you say, through that lens of this is all like a metaphor for him coming out, and like the idea of the sexual frustration erupting and what the damage it could cause if he holds it in, and then it eventually erupts, and it like it's basically saying it'll just be sperming all over the place and spunking on everyone. But so if you look at it from that lens, yes, the ending's a bit weird when it's like, oh, all he needed was some love, and he beat it. He got through it. So yeah, I guess. And then we have another bus scene at the end.
You gotta have that last little scare.
It's funny because I think the end of the first movie, it matters how literal the end scene is, because obviously we have continuity after that. But the end of this one, this movie's never referenced again, to the best of my memory, so it doesn't actually matter. If you want to believe this ending is literal, take it. If you want to believe this is just him having a nightmare and it's not actually him dying again with Freddy, take it. Whatever, doesn't matter. Go about your business, it's fine. How about his ass? We see his ass in a glorious fight in the football field. His best friend grabs his running trousers and pulls them down, and you just like have his ass hanging out for this. They're rolling around the ground as his ass is bare. So just in case it wasn't homoerotic enough for you quite yet, you've got that as well. You've got enough of it.
And I mean, honestly, it's like it might seem kind of weird, but it really is like in this movie's best interest, because without all this stuff, this is like nothing. There's nothing interesting. I mean, aside from
it's the most
like a
interesting,
few okay kills.
Yeah, it's the most interesting part of the movie. Like I like the gym teacher kill. I like when Grady gets killed. Where he's trying to get out. He's terrified, and like his parents just see the claws coming through the door. That was an okay little death scene. That worked. That said, if you
there's not like a ton of death though, unless you count like all the kids at the pool party. But
that's true. That said, if you're going with this whole sexual allegory, it puts a really weird image of the scene where he actually, like, as Freddy goes into his little sister's bedroom and he's like hovering over her, and then he sort of like snaps out of it and says, "Oh, it's okay, nothing." And he puts her back to sleep. I'm like, if you're saying Freddy's a representation of his sexual rage, then that scene's like really disturbing.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to think too much about that.
Yeah. So I think, like I say, I don't think the script was written with that intended, but a lot of it get added in later, and as a result, some of the scenes don't really work with it. Like, that scene, the ending, kind of don't work with that message. But hey, what are you gonna do?
I do think it is interesting to. Again, I can't really think of many other horror movies that do this, but to have a very have like a male protagonist who seems to be, in a very much like a, female kind of role, like just because he has that like scream queen kind of thing that you see in a lot of horror movies, but like as a male, I don't know, I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so at the time it wasn't that common. I feel like it's maybe a bit more common now to have a guy in a horror movie. I mean, it's still more female than male, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's still weighed on one side, but...
I feel like the guys, like, in most horror movies that you see now, they'd be, like, overly macho or something. Yeah, I don't know. Definitely never seen, like, someone, like, scream like the way he does. At least from a male protagonist.
Yeah,
but
no, that's fine.
And again, it's just like stuff like that that's like, oh, this is interesting, like something that you don't really see too often, and it's kind of I don't know, it's like doesn't necessarily make it good. Like
I wouldn't say it makes it good. Like I have an okay time watching it. It's not what it's, it's, I think it's fine. It does have a fan base. There's a cult fan base for Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I think it's okay. I think the characters are memorable. Yeah. But I think if you took out this like sex subtext stuff and you took out some of the weirder elements, it would be nothing. It would be such a like. Oh yeah. As it is, I still think it's a bit of a misstep, like because it's like a weird tangent to go on after the first one. It's like this doesn't really feel like it's part of the continuity, really. And then you go back to 3, and like 3, like continues everything the first movie set up, and it just So I feel like
also, yeah. Also, I don't like. They never really explain like how, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like how all of a sudden Freddy is just able to like possess this guy.
Oh God, no, not even not even a lick of explanation. Yeah, I think we're done. I don't have much more to add about Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Yeah, yeah. I guess there isn't really much to say about it other than again, the 100th time I'm saying it, but it is interesting.
It's an interesting movie. It's not necessarily the sequel you wanted for the first one, but it's an interesting movie. That is true. Tim, what would you rate Nightmare on Elm Street 2?
I think as much as I do like enjoy watching it, like obviously it's not my favorite of the series. But it is one, if I'm like rewatching it, like I won't skip it or anything. I still have a fun time watching it, but again, like we said, other than that kind of subtext and stuff, there isn't a ton there. So I think I'm gonna give it a 4.5, which might sound a little harsh, but
it feels a little bit harsh.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's like I do get enjoyment out of it, but I mean a lot of it is like the cheesiness factor, and again, there's a lot of interesting stuff, but it's not like, like we said, not necessarily makes like for a good movie. It's not necessarily what I want from a nightmare movie, but still a good watch.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit higher than that. I think I'll go with maybe 5.5. I think it's just slightly above the average line because I do think the characters are quite memorable, and it has got these weird, wacky ideas that kind of keep you interested and invested. I can't rate it much higher though because it is this weird tangent of a sequel that doesn't really feel like it belongs in the series, really.
Yeah, I think that's what's like a little tough for me.
That said, it's not like Freddy's dead, sorry. Jason Goes to Hell. It's not like that where it's so far away from the movie series that.
Yeah.
But it does feel just a little bit out. It's like an off ramp.
Yeah, and I think maybe some of the idea of Freddy trying to possess someone, like I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, but again, like maybe some more context as to why and how all of a sudden he can do this.
Why does he want to do that now? And or at least give us some dreamy kills. Like it's that set up that he's still doing that. It's just that he has a specific goal in mind for this one for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's my big problem with it is as much as interesting stuff there is, again, there's not as many good like horror elements. Like if there was more creepiness or there's a few good special effects, but like I don't know if there's like one really really cool gory moment or something, and then the pool scene is just so silly. But I don't know. But
Yeah, no, I think that sums us up, Tim. So, let us know what you think of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. You get some bonuses over there if you do that, such as voting once per month on an episode. You get access to the Crypt, which is a user-submitted list of movies that we'll get around to at some point. A to-do list, if you will, that we'll randomly pick movies for time to time to do. I can barely speak. So that has been the second Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Hopefully you had fun with the review. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching. Always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we'll see you next time.